UFC 310 Pantoja versus Asakura is coming up in a couple weeks, and today, guys, I have the full card breakdown for you with timestamps if you'd like to skip to any part of the video. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with 20 YouTube channels. Guys, we're going to be breaking down these fights. We're going to dive into them as deep as we could possibly get, from the early prelims all the way to the main event. We're going to be talking about betting odds, fighters that I personally would like to see to win. We're going to talk about everything regarding all of these fighters, guys. Now, the only other note that we have is there are a couple new additions, and because the card still is a couple weeks away because the UFC is having a little bit of a break, it is important to note there are some fights here that don't have betting lines released yet. At the time that you're seeing this video, I'm recording it 2 days prior, so those are the odds that we are working with. With that being said, guys, let's dive into the fights. And I don't know, guys, what I missed, but I had no clue that this fight got moved to UFC 310. Chris Weidman versus Eryk Anders. I'm glad that this fight's still intact. I'm glad it's still here. Also, if you guys have been following the channel, you might know that this is obviously a different layout than from what I typically do. Typically, I work around something a little bit like this, and I'm always looking to improve the channel. Whatever you guys like to see, please comment down below. Let me know what layout you prefer. It's always helpful. But anyways, let's get into this fight. Chris Weidman, Eryk Anders. Let's break down the styles, and this is a fight that we just talked about. Chris Weidman, he's a well-rounded fighter who is primarily a wrestler, but unfortunately, Chris Weidman is past his prime. He is now a slow, sloppy, hesitant fighter, relying on his toughness to carry him through bouts. Chris Weidman, 40 years old, again, like I just said, past his prime. I cannot believe he beat Bruno Silva, but even then, it was the eye poke knockout. Chris Weidman got away with cheating, but Chris Weidman is a shell of the fighter that he once was. Of course, we all know that he broke his leg. He's never been the same fighter since. Eryk Anders, on the other time, 16-8, has found a little bit of success, but still, Eryk Anders is also a fighter that is, unfortunately, seemingly out of his prime. He's a decently well-rounded fighter who is, for the division, I would say he's more well-rounded than a lot of fighters. He's big, he's strong, he has really good power, and he has a wrestling game to back all that up. There's nowhere that Eryk Anders shines in a bout, but he is a good fighter overall. I personally believe, and I'd love to know what you guys think about this down below, he's pushing 38 years old. I believe his age is catching up with him now. He seems to slow down as the fights progress, and he's also become more hittable than usual. In saying that, while both fighters are past their prime, I can't not pick Eryk Anders in this bout. Chris Weidman, again, he's a shell of the fighter that he once was. He came back, he fought Brad Tavares, did not look good one little bit, and then also didn't look good against Bruno Silva, and that win also hasn't aged gracefully with the performances that Bruno Silva has been putting on. He was just slow, he was sloppy. At least with Eryk Anders, I'm still seeing that dog in him. I'm still seeing him coming in and actively trying to win fights. I'm not saying that Chris Weidman doesn't try, but Eryk Anders, he's still got it. He's still got it for the division, and I'm very, very confident that he's going to get the job done. My official pick is going to be Eryk Anders to get the win. In saying that, though, Chris Weidman is one of my favorite fighters of all time. I hope I'm wrong. But I do not believe I'm going to be wrong in this one. Oh my God, and I forgot the most important thing to note is both of these guys are going to be going through another weight cut. Both of these guys made weight because the fight got canceled the night of. I would imagine that's going to be a lot harder on Chris Weidman than Eryk Anders, so that's something important to note too. Sorry, I forgot to mention that because, and again, I didn't know until I went to make this video that this fight got rebooked. So my pick is going to be Eryk Anders. I hope Chris Weidman gets a job done. I'm with you guys in saying that I had a sour taste left in my mouth after the way he was celebrating the eye poke victory. Unfortunately, it did leave a sour taste in my mouth as well, but I've liked Chris Weidman throughout his whole career. One moment, is it really going to make me change my tune on him? Not so much. At the time of recording this video, there are no betting lines, but I am feeling really good about Eryk Anders in this one, guys. Now, guys, let's move on up to the next fight. We have Vicente Luque taking on Themba Gorimbo. The first thing to note about this fight is Themba Gorimbo has taken this fight on short notice. Vicente Luque lost his free win against Nick Diaz. We'll start with Vicente Luque. I've been a fan of Vicente Luque for a very long time, and I feel bad that he hasn't been able to put it together recently, guys. So, Vicente Luque, he's well-rounded. He's a high-volume technical striker with a lot of cardio, a lot of heart. He can fight technically, but he can also fight very dirty too. He can typically just basically contest with opponents anywhere, no matter where they are. But the issue is, I think he's out of his prime. He's 33 years old. He has taken a lot of damage. He's had a lot of really good scraps. I don't know if it's a heart issue. I don't know what's going on with him because, take a look at even just and I know his opponents have aged pretty well, okay? He lost Bilal Muhammad and Jeff Neal, which this one shocked me, but again, aged gracefully, right? The Rafael dos Anjos fight. He seemed to take a different approach. The fight IQ was much better on his return. He was very patient. He mixed in the wrestling. He mixed in all of the options that he had. Like, he was a nice step forward in that whole fight, but that was against Dos Anjos, who's also past his prime. Then he took on Joaquin Buckley. Joaquin Buckley, I know that this loss has aged nicely, but I have no clue what happened. He did nothing the entire fight. Nothing. At this point, I have no reason to believe that Vicente Luque will be any different. But before we do that, let's talk about Themba Gorimbo. Not exactly a ton to break down with Themba Gorimbo. He's a good striker who uses his range pretty well. He takes his time. He keeps you at bay. He has good counter-striking. He has good takedown defense to keep things on the feet. Themba Gorimbo, like, I don't know if he's improving, but I think that he is one of those guys that at this point in his career kind of fits just outside the rankings. That's kind of how I feel about Themba Gorimbo, but he's put together a nice 4-fight win streak, quiet 4-fight win streak. The opponent level could be better, but still, he's putting it together. He's getting the wins. He's keeping things safe. He's having okay performances. I think that he's going to have the same type of performance against Vicente Luque. I can't pick Vicente Luque after seeing his performance against Joaquin Buckley. I don't know what happened. He did nothing. And Vicente Luque hasn't looked like Vicente Luque in years, man. In years. I know that he had the brain bleed. I understand that, but he came and he looked okay against Dos Anjos. Is it the brain bleed? I don't know, man. I have to pick Themba Gorimbo. The only thing that could be going against that is Themba Gorimbo taking this fight on short notice. But until I see Vicente Luque have a standout performance, I don't think I'm going to be picking him. So, in saying that though, I actually really do like both guys. It's one of those fights where I think it's a shame that somebody has to lose it. But I kind of want Vicente Luque to win. Themba Gorimbo's on a nice win streak. Vicente Luque is in a must-win situation. I feel bad too because he had a free win in Nick Diaz. A very free win. And now he's getting another contender. Let's take a look at what the odds have to say. The average odds for Themba Gorimbo over here are minus 201. I honestly think it could be a little bit steeper. I don't know what's going on with Vicente Luque, man. He needs to pull it together. Odds make sense. Themba Gorimbo's sitting at a minus 200 favorite. I don't mind that. All right, guys, let's move on to the next fight. I am very, very excited for this fight. This fight is going under the radar big time. This whole card's fantastic. I cannot wait to watch this fight. We have Randy Brown versus Bryan battle. Two huge contenders. This fight means a lot for both of their careers, and this one's really tough to pick in my opinion. Very, very tough to pick, okay? Randy Brown, he's a tall and long striker who uses his range, his speed very well. Sometimes he can surprise his opponents. Sometimes he has good takedowns, and he has sneaky good BJJ behind that. He's also not afraid to and it's unfortunate because we have to mention this. He's not afraid to stick his fingers out big time. Fighters can get away with cheating. Just like what we watch with Michael Chandler. Randy Brown is no stranger to the using his reach to get an eye poke. Bryan Battle, on the other hand, he's a decently well-rounded fighter who excels at striking. He has good power, he has good volume, huge kicks, and he has all of the heart and the will to get the job done. This dude is an absolute animal. And the other thing that's important to note about Bryan Battle is every single time that we see this guy, he is making huge improvements. Not every single time, the vast majority of the time that he performs. He's making not just improvements, but he's seemingly making like huge improvements. He is putting a ton of work on the outside of the octagon. Both guys are coming off of great wins with great performances. Bryan Battle's been looking better every single time we see him. Randy Brown has put together a nice, quiet win streak. Elizeu Zaleski and Wellington Turman are phenomenal wins. I know people feel a different way about Wellington Turman. I think this is a great win. Muslim Salikov could be better, depending on how the new performance of him ends up being. But I personally think he beat a Muslim Salikov that was past his prime. Regardless, Randy Brown also on a roll. Both of these fighters are great at what they do. I think this is a pick'em fight. I really, really don't know who to pick in this fight. I don't know, man. This fight could really go either way. I'm going to pick Bryan Battle because of the momentum. He's shined more recently, and like I said, he's improving. But it wouldn't shock me if I was wrong on this one. I think Randy Brown's a very capable fighter in himself. I think he's a very underrated fighter. I cannot wait to watch this fight. These are two highly, highly talented fighters looking to really make a name for themselves. It's a very important fight for both of them, and it sucks that one of them has to lose. I might be wanting Randy Brown to win a little bit more, though. I'm a little bit of a bigger fan of Rude Boy. Bryan Battle's fun to watch, but I respect Randy Brown a lot. Let's continue on over to Odds Jam to see what the odds has to say. Bryan Battle is a really big favorite. Honestly, I was going to make the betting guide video and say that you should not be betting on this fight, but for Randy Brown at plus 200, I actually don't mind that. I'll have to think about what I want to say about that one. But man, I cannot wait for that fight. It's going to be great. All right, guys, let's move on to another banger on the card. Cody Durden versus Joshua Van. Both guys being incredibly active. Both guys very respectable names. Like Cody Durden, man, the dude's an animal. Like even just in his last fight, he took this on what, like 4 days notice, 3 days notice, something like that. Regardless, this is a very, again, I think it's a high level fight, man, against two great contenders. Cody Durden, he's a powerful wrestler with that typical wrestler overhand. He wants to dive at you. He wants to wrestle. He wants to break you down. He has great control, scrambles, and BJJ in his back pocket. Not even necessarily his back pocket, his front pocket to get the win. Now, something that Cody Durden often says is he would rather die than tap out. He lives up to that. He proves that in the octagon. He's one of those guys with that strong mentality. Joshua Van, on the other hand, like many of you watching this video, I am incredibly high in him. Joshua Van, 23 years old, and I'm already convinced that he's the real deal. He's going to have a very promising future ahead of him. Joshua Van lives up to the name Fearless. He is an incredible boxer with insane chin, great pressure, great sneaky kicks, takedowns behind his shots. His body work is money. Like, you see a lot of boxers, like, man, he does such a good job with that. Like, the speed's really nice. He will walk forward. He'll pick you apart, make you think about where you're getting hit. The diversity of shot placements is great for Joshua Van. And on top of that, he has all of the heart in the world, improving with each fight, and he's one of those guys that you can never count out of a fight. We saw him have a really good performance against Charles Johnson. He ended up getting clipped, but that was still an amazing performance. He's done nothing but shine since he's gotten to the UFC. Against great opponents too, like Felipe Bunes is a great opponent. Kevin Borjas, depends how you want to look at that. I think it's a good win. Zhalgas Zhumagulov, it was a split decision, but he looked good in there. Look what Zhalgas went on to do, okay? Then, the Edgar Sheras fight this is the fight where it made me actually sit down with Joshua Van and be like, okay, I don't care whether he wins or loses. This dude could be a champion one day. It was phenomenal on both ends. Every single thing was shown in that fight, and Joshua Van has completely proved to me, and I always feel bad saying that because who am I to like who am I that you have to prove anything to, right? Obviously, but you guys get what I'm saying. Like, I'm completely convinced of the guy. Cody Durden, on the other hand, unfortunately, he's 17-6. He's been a little bit inconsistent, but his talent level that he's been fighting has been really, really good. Like, he's taken on some great opponents. He got a recent win. Cody Durden's always a dog. You can never count him out of a fight, man. But I've just been that much more impressed by Joshua Van. I think that Joshua Van is going to have an answer to the takedowns. Even if he gets taken down, I think he's going to get back up. I think he's going to work off of his back. I think he is going to volume strike Cody Durden to death, and I think the body shots are going to have a great, great job attacking him. The only thing that I'm a little bit worried about with Joshua Van is the amount of damage that he took last fight. And honestly, the damage that he's accumulated in his short career. He's 23 years old. It's going to catch up with him one day, but I don't think it's going to be it yet. Joshua Van is a very, very confident pick of mine. I'm convinced of the guy, man. Okay, what am I seeing here? Also, I like both guys. I'd cheer for Joshua Van a little bit more. Joshua Van's only a minus 162 favorite. Am I crazy? There's no way. That's wild if that's the case. I'd imagine Joshua Van would be a really, really solid favorite. Again, odds are good right now, man. Odds are real, real good. Now, guys, let's move on throughout the card. Another amazing fight. We have Movsar Evloev versus Aljamain Sterling. I don't know about you guys, but I'm personally really excited for this fight. I know a lot of people don't exactly get excited for Movsar. I don't know why. I think he's a great fighter. I think he's a pretty exciting fighter. We'll start with Movsar Evloev over here. 18-0. Undefeated. He is a well-rounded fighter who shines when grappling and controlling pressure. His striking is great as well. He has amazing heart, amazing cardio. He is legitimately the real deal when it comes to contenders. Now, here's the problem. I have not rewatched Movsar Evloev's fight with Arnold Allen. At the time, I did not think this was a robbery. I thought it was a close fight. I thought it could go either way. I personally edged it to Movsar Evloev. I know a lot of people think Arnold Allen won that fight, but no matter what happened in that fight, the takeaway from Movsar Evloev versus Arnold Allen for me was being completely convinced that Movsar is championship material. It was one of the most high-level fights I've ever seen. He struck with Arnold Allen perfectly fine. He showed amazing heart. The cardio was crazy. At the end of the fight, if I'm not mistaken, he wasn't even breathing heavy. So, like, he's just so composed. He's so complete, and I think that he is the real deal. Will he beat Ilia Topuria? I don't know. But does he belong at the top of the division? Absolutely. I still personally have those questions when it comes to Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling, we all know him. We all kind of love him. He's a strong grappler with okay takedowns, but once he gets there, he shines. He has excellent control. He has excellent transitions. And he's excellent on the mat in general. He's very good at finding submissions. And once he gets to the ground, he's pretty much the guy who controls things. Now, big problem with Aljamain Sterling, okay? And I'm very interested to see how this is going to affect his career. First of all, he's 35 years old. He's exited his prime now. The rule change is going to benefit people fighting against Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain was one of those guys who would, oh, my hands are on the ground, you can't touch me, and he would kind of crawl to you in order to get a hold of your legs. Aljamain Sterling can no longer do that, and we all saw what happened when Petr Yan decided to just try to take his head off with that. I think that's a problem because Aljamain Sterling uses that so much more than people might think. He's constantly throwing his hands on the ground and cowering that way. I'm glad the rules changed. I'm interested to see if Aljamain Sterling finds himself in bad positions because of it or has trouble getting to people because of it. Let's assume that he has no problem getting to Movsar's legs. I think Movsar will out-grapple him. I do. But here's the other thing that I'm talking about, okay? I pick Aljamain Sterling's fights incorrectly all the time. I picked Petr Yan to beat him. I picked TJ Dillashaw to beat him. I picked Henry Cejudo. I'm pretty sure I picked Henry Cejudo to beat him. Sean O'Malley, I said could go either way. Calvin Kattar, I picked to beat him. So I have a history of calling Aljamain Sterling's fights wrong, but it doesn't make sense that the guy gets the win. It doesn't make sense. With his style and the way that he does things, it doesn't make sense why he keeps winning. I think this is where it ends. I think he's finally fighting at 145 against a top contender in Movsar Evloev, who is too complete. I think that he'll be able to test in the grappling with Aljamain Sterling, and the striking will be a night and day difference. Evloev is 30 years old. Aljamain Sterling is 35 years old. Also, Aljamain Sterling is coming off of an injury. Who knows how that's going to affect him? He's past his prime now. I know he recently lost him. I'm talking like he just keeps winning like Glover won. But I think this is where the win streak ends. I think Movsar Evloev is going to beat him. And I want to say that's a very confident pick of mine. But the problem is I keep picking Aljamain Sterling's fights incorrectly. So who knows what's going to happen, man. My pick is going to be Movsar Evloev. I kind of hope he wins. I don't really care too much either way. And you can see that Movsar Evloev, the odds are actually agreeing with me. Movsar Evloev is sitting at a decently significant favorite at minus 236. Makes sense to me. I'm confident that Movsar will get the job done, but who knows, man? Who knows? It's going to be a great fight. Hopefully this one doesn't get canceled again. All right, guys, let's continue on up the card to Michael Chiesa taking on at Max Payne Griffin. Very interesting fight, and I think it's a very good choice for Michael Chiesa's next bout, okay? Michael Chiesa, what is there to break down about him? He's a big guy. He's a BJJ grappler with subpar hands. There's not a ton to break down to talk about Michael Chiesa, and honestly, not too much to talk about with Max Griffin either. He's a well-rounded fighter. He has really good power in his shots, and he has a solid grappling game to back up his striking. Like, one of the easiest fighters to break down at this point. Now, both the fighters are well past their prime. Max Griffin, 20-10. The record speaks for itself. Win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. He's been in there with some of the best. He's been in there with some absolute dogs, and Max Griffin is a very, very good fighter who I would say is a little bit better than his record shows. Michael Chiesa finally broke the 3-fight losing streak that he had against Tony Ferguson. But the problem is, I feel like any young, capable man at this point, any of you watching this video, could beat Tony Ferguson at this point in his career. The dude is a shell of his former self. He's old. He can't do anymore. Too much damage. So I take that win, and it means nothing to me. Okay? Other than that, you got to take a look at Michael Chiesa's recent losses, and he has been a very inactive fighter. Sean Brady and Kevin Holland have aged really well. Vicente Luque, Michael Chiesa, I don't know exactly how much he's been dedicated to the game anymore because he does have the commentary job. He does a great job over at the analyst desk. Michael Chiesa, he's always been a BJJ kind of fighter, one of those like fighters that could be more well-rounded, one of those one-trick ponies kind of guy. But it also could just be his age. It could be his dedication to the game. He's not the killer he was when he came into the UFC. Max Griffin, on the other hand, man, he's pushing 40. He's pushing 40. This is a really tough fight to pick. I don't know. If it goes to the ground, I feel like Michael Chiesa is better than Max Griffin, although Max Griffin is a great grappler himself. But Max Griffin has a huge advantage on the feet, in my opinion. Oh, this is a close fight. A very, very, very low confidence pick, but I am going to pick Max Griffin to get the job done. In saying that, though, I hope I'm wrong. I hope Michael Chiesa wins. Michael Chiesa is one of my favorite fighters of all time. And stay tuned for this, by the way, because I'm going to make an updated video about my favorite fighters ever in the UFC and MMA. So stay tuned for that if you're interested in following the channel. And thank you for watching the video so far, by the way, guys. Your time is very valuable. I appreciate you spending any time that you have been over here. So I hope Michael Chiesa gets the job done. You can see over at OddsJam, Michael Chiesa sitting at the average odds of plus 128. Max Griffin, a slight favorite. Can't argue with that. Makes sense in my opinion. I think that could go either way. All right, guys, let's move on to the next fight. We have Guida taking on Chase Hooper. I swear, I'm looking forward to every single fight on this card. This is one of the best cards of the year, man. One of the best cards of the year. And we lost a couple fights too. But anyways, let's talk about Guida. Let's talk about Chase Hooper. Guida, 38-24, man. A very, very experienced fighter. He's a well-rounded fighter. He excels in the grappling department and breaking you down with his pace. He has a ton of heart, a ton of cardio, and typically if I'm talking about a guy who's pushing 43, I would say he's clearly past his prime, but while he is past his prime, he's still moving very well for his age. Like, when we talk about Guida breaking people with cardio, he is very capable of doing that at 43 years old. It doesn't make sense. He's one of those Glover Teixeira type fighters who is aging gracefully. I will say, the day is coming. Guida is 43 years old just about. The day is coming where he's going to show up and we're going to be like, okay, Guida, time to retire. He's just about there. It doesn't make sense that he still pushes at the pace that he does. He's in phenomenal shape. He's a great fighter. He has all the experience in the world against top-level talent. But even then, even in his last fight against Joaquim Silva, he almost won this fight. It was a close fight, and he's taken on still some really great opponents, too. Guida's still a dog, man. Chase Hooper, on the other hand, a hugely improving fighter, okay? He is a grappler with insane heart. He is always out for the attack. He's trying to drag his opponents to the ground, either using ground and pound or finding a submission. After the loss against Steve Garcia, which aged very well, he put together a really, really nice 3-fight win streak, and he has been improving, like I said, every single time that we see him. He's also not focused on his weight cut anymore. He has moved up, and he's focusing on just becoming a better fighter. He recently shined against Vyacheslav Borshev. Domination doesn't do that justice as a description for that fight. From start to finish, Chase pounded. Arguably 10-7 rounds. I think Chase Hooper is improving. While I do think that he'll take another loss soon, he's getting better and better. He's 25 years old, still improving. I think that he's going to beat Guida. I think we're going to see some nice grappling exchanges, but the problem is Chase Hooper, I do not think he'll be broken by the pressure of Guida. I think that Chase Hooper is just going to be more active. I think he's going to throw more. And I want to say, I don't know, maybe because if this fight goes to the ground, I'm assuming that it does, Clay's one of those guys who has the experience and kind of veteran tactics that he could bring stuff out that Chase Hooper hasn't necessarily seen before, especially in the octagon. But at the end of the day, Guida's on a 2-fight losing streak. While he didn't look horrible, Chase Hooper has been shining. That's more so the reason why I'm picking Chase Hooper at this point. This wouldn't shock me if this was the parlay buster, if Guida ended up getting the win. I'm kind of sitting at 70-30 for my prediction over here. I'm going to pick Chase Hooper. He's younger. He's improving. He has a better reach. His striking's even improving. I think he's going to get the job done. Low confidence pick. Fairly low confidence, but I am going to pick him to get the win. Now, for who I'd like to see win, I'm doing this a lot this card. I really hope Guida gets the win. I like Guida. I hugely respect him. He's a vet of the game, and I like to see these older guys get the win too, especially when they're as well experienced and respected as Guida is. We're not going to see much more of him, and I would like to see him go out on top. Now, weirdly enough, I just clicked on OddsJam over here. I don't look at the odds before I record these videos. I get an authentic reaction for you guys. I don't know where Chase Hooper is, but Guida's sitting at a plus 520 underdog. That's crazy. That's crazy. If I had to guess, I'd put him at plus 300 about that. I guess that makes sense. But regardless, I can see that one being the parlay buster, man. I really, really can. All right, guys, let's move on to the featured prelim over here. We have Anthony Smith taking on Dominic Reyes. This is a really good matchup for the division. Really good matchup because typically against anybody else in the division right now, I'd be picking against both of these guys, okay? Not a ton to break down with both of them, to be honest with you. Anthony Smith, he's a striker. He has a lot of heart and good grappling behind it. Lionheart, he lives up to the name. He's always trying to win the fight, although Anthony Smith is way past his prime. Way past his prime. Dominic Reyes, more of the same. Also past his prime. Finally found a win after 4 straight losses. 3 straight losses. Of course, we all know that he did beat John Jones 5 years ago. He is a decently well-rounded fighter with great striking. He has good movement for the division. He has really good power. And for the division, he is extremely athletic. He finally broke that skid and knocked out Dustin Jacoby, which shocked me. I lost money on this fight, but I'm happy that I lost money on this fight because I'm happy about Dominic Reyes. One of the fighters that I feel most bad for in the sport because he should have gone down as a world champion. He got that robbed from him. He should be the guy who is known as beating the greatest fighter of all time in John Jones. Then he took on Murderer's Row with Jan Blachowicz, Yuri Prohashka, and Ryan Spann getting knocked out and all of them finally getting the win. It was one of the most wholesome moments I've ever seen. It was nice to see him get the win. Anthony Smith, on the other hand, when Anthony Smith wins, it's not nearly as wholesome. Because you have Anthony Smith over here on paper, who is better than the entire division. Now, if you want to break this fight down, honestly, like before we talk about Anthony Smith, if you just break down Dominic Reyes and like take away his well-roundedness, okay? If you separate the striking, if you separate the movement, and you separate the power, I think that Anthony Smith should have no problem tackling all of those individually. It's just the issue when you put them all together. That's how Anthony Smith would describe this fight, and you understand how dumb that sounds, okay? Anthony Smith, he's 36 years old, clearly past his prime. I know the Roman Dolidze fight, like, he had a crap performance, but that could have been the circumstance of the fight. He took this fight on about 1-2 weeks notice. I don't remember exactly what it was. He got the shocking win against Vitor Petrino, sucked against Khalil Roundtree, sucked against Ryan Spann, sucked against Johnny Walker. Anthony Smith does not have it anymore. And I don't know who's going to win this fight because this one win from Dominic Reyes, he caught Dustin Jacoby right away. We didn't really get to see too much of a fight. So I'm not ready to sit here and say Dominic Reyes is back. Dominic Reyes is going to be a contender again. The reality is both of these fighters are extremely past their prime. Dominic Reyes might have a chin issue now, but Anthony Smith is just so slow and labored in there. And he convinces himself that he's winning throughout the fight too. So that's something to note. Like, is he even like, let's say he's losing against Dominic Reyes. He's going to go back into his corner. Yeah, I won that round. So he's not going to have that killer instinct in the third round. Again, I'd pick against these two fighters if it was against the vast majority of the division. My gut's telling me Dominic Reyes. Anthony Smith has just looked more like crap, but that might be because we've seen more of Anthony Smith. I'm going to pick Dominic Reyes. Extremely low confidence. I think this is closer to a pick'em, but let's see what OddsJam has to say. And by the way, guys, I hope Dominic Reyes wins. I don't really like Anthony Smith that much, and I'm a fan of Dominic Reyes. Oh, wow. I didn't expect that. Dominic Reyes to be a minus 341 favorite. I think that's crazy. I think this fight should be closer to a pick'em. This could also be a big parlay buster of the card. Look what Anthony Smith just did to Vitor Petrino in parlay busting. He could do the same thing in Dominic Reyes. I'm not ready to say he has a good chin. I'm not ready to say he's back. If he shines here, maybe that's a conversation for another time, but I'm not ready to pick him yet. I'm going to pick him, but very low confidence. Now, guys, before we move on to the main card, as you guys know, I talk a lot about betting on this channel. If you are interested in either just supporting the channel or seeing exactly where I'm putting my money, where my mouth is when it comes to all these fights, if you guys are interested every single Thursday or Friday before every single card, you can check out the channel membership. For members, I will be uploading a members-only video and a YouTube community post describing exactly what I'm doing with my money every single week. If you're looking to either just support the channel, like I said, or combine my fight knowledge with your own research, then that's something you can check out. It's very cheap compared to other channels. You can find that link in the pinned comment description down below or right next to the subscribe button. Also, this tool that we've been using, OddsJam. OddsJam is sponsoring this video, which thank you very much to OddsJam. If you'd like to sign up to OddsJam, fantastic at what they do. If you're a serious sports bettor with multiple sports books, they're up to date on the odds. You can find the best place to place a bet, so they make it easy for you. You can use OddsJam and get a discount over there using my code in the pinned comment description down below. My link with the code Clenbat. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Let's move on to this main card. And again, we have another really good matchup. Bryce Mitchell and Kron Gracie both returning to the octagon. This is going to be an interesting fight. I hope we get to see these guys grapple. Bryce Mitchell returning after that horrible KO against Josh Emmett. I'll say this now because it's something that we need to do. Like, he got knocked out really bad. Like one of those knockouts that his chin might never be the same again. Something important to note. So, Bryce Mitchell, he's a decently well-rounded fighter, but he shines in the grappling. I will say he's underrated on the feet, but his goal is to get you down, and his goal is to submit you. Kron Gracie, on the other hand, 5-2. Haven't seen him in how long? How long's it been? 1 year, 2 years almost against Charles Jourdain, then took another giant break against Cub Swanson, and he has not been an active fighter one little bit. He's a BJJ fighter with issues getting the fight to the ground and doesn't have a good stand-up game. That's the breakdown for Kron Gracie. Guys, I don't know what there is to say. Kron Gracie is 36 years old. He doesn't exactly belong anywhere near the rankings. Bryce Mitchell does. The only issue I can see is if like Bryce Mitchell's chin is completely gone from that last KO. I'm assuming it's not. Bryce Mitchell's way better than Kron Gracie on the feet, and I believe that he can actually contest with him on the ground. Bryce Mitchell is very, very slick on the ground. And even his losses, like Josh Emmett can knock out anybody, and he just lost to a fighter that people are already deeming to go down as one of the greatest fighters of all time. Other than that, Bryce Mitchell's had some really, really nice wins against some really good competition. I'm very confident that Bryce Mitchell's going to get the job done. I'm going to pick him to get the job done. And I would like to see Bryce Mitchell win. Fan of Bryce Mitchell. He's always really fun to watch. Seems like a really chill dude. Now, for some reason, the odds are not out on Bryce Mitchell versus Kron Gracie, but I would imagine that Bryce Mitchell is a giant favorite. He's going to be my pick. I'd like to see him win. And yeah, that was a really easy breakdown to do. But now, guys, let's move on to the next fight. Another banger on this card. Nate the Train Landwehr taking on Do Ho Choi. I love watching both of these guys fight. Nate Landwehr getting the main card pay-per-view slot. It's very, very nice to see. It's very well deserved. Same with the Korean Superboy, man. Like, both of these guys. It's going to be one of those fights where it's going to suck to see either guy lose. Okay, Nate the Train, high-pressure wrestler who shines when he's dragging people to the ground, spamming takedowns, holding opponents, and just using his overall volume and brawling tactics to break you. His technical striking, though, needs a lot of work, and he is open to being clipped. Do Ho Choi, on the other hand, is a fighter who we all know, we all love, trains with the Korean Zombie. He's a decently well-rounded fighter, excels at striking. He has all of the heart in the world, and he is more than capable of participating and shining in a brawl, and that's what is exciting about this matchup in particular. The Korean Superboy, he recently returned after his, 5-year layoff for the mandatory military service they have over there. Had the weird-looking fight against Kyle Nelson, but I'll excuse that. It was his first fight back. And then he had the Bill Aljo KO. Like, in this fight, he had a decent outing, to be honest with you. I'm still not ready to say that Doohoo is the killer that he once was coming back onto the scene, though. He's 33 years old. He's exiting his prime. But Nate the Train, though, he's 36 years old. 36 years old. But I still think he has it, man, because, like, in the Jamal Emmers fight, like, yeah, he didn't have a good showing against Dan Ige, although it was a war. Jamal Emmers, this was a really good fight, and Jamal Emmers, I don't know why I can't highlight him. Jamal Emmers is an underappreciated fighter as well. Like, he came out, and he put an absolute whooping on Nate Landwehr towards the end of the first, and then just Nate ended up making it just dirty and ended up getting a KO. Like, that's the story of Nate the Train. He wants to drag you into deep waters, and he will shine in those deep waters. But Do Ho Choi also shines in those deep waters. But Do Ho Choi hasn't been brought into those deep waters in many years. I don't see why Do Ho Choi wouldn't be capable of going into those wars. Maybe. But then again, like, he has been finished too. Toughy. Very, very tough fight to pick. I'm going to edge Nate the Train. Pause. I'm sitting at like 60, 40-ish, 70, 30-ish of this one. I'm going to pick Nate the Train. I like the momentum that he's been on. I'm confident that if the fight gets ridiculously sloppy, the Korean Superboy might fall a little bit behind Nate Landwehr. But Nate Landwehr also, they're on a pay-per-view crowd. It's going to be a huge card. He's one of those guys that thrives off of the crowd. I'm kind of talking myself into a Nate the Train win. I think it's a close fight. I think Do Ho Choi is very capable of sitting down on his technique and really punishing Nate for that, because that's the way to beat Nate Landwehr. Keep things technical, kind of do what Dan Ige did, right? Although Dan Ige didn't do it perfectly. You guys get the point that I'm saying. I love watching both of these fighters. I think I like watching the Korean Superboy just a little bit more. Not watching, but I think I like him a little bit more. Like, it's a shame that one of these guys has to lose the fight. It's a fantastic matchup. I'll be slightly hoping that Do Ho Choi gets it done, but man, it's really, really hard. Now, Odds Jim has the odds close to, kind of sitting where I'm sitting. You have Nate Landwehr sitting at about a minus 163 favorite. In my opinion, this is one to skip. If anything, like maybe over 1.5 rounds. I'm interested to see how that'll be, because both guys are animals. Both guys are dogs. I need to start making prop videos on this, guys. But regardless, I'm excited. I'm very, very excited for this fight. This fight is going to deliver for sure. All right, guys, let's continue on up the card. Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov. Another amazing fight. This fight was canceled, right? I'm almost sure this fight was moved. Why am I having a blank on that? Regardless, it doesn't matter. You have Cyril Gane. He hasn't fought in a little while. Let's see how long it's been since Cyril Gane fought. Over a year ago against Sergey Spivak. Cyril Gane getting a little comfortable in life. He's acting. It's something to take into consideration when breaking down these fights. So, Cyril Gane, he's a strong striker who technically is miles ahead of the majority of the division. I don't know about Volkov, but the majority of the division. On the feet, he's fantastic. He has good movement. He has cardio. He has a diversity of shots and incredible power. He does have a hole in his grappling game, though, and that's something that Alexander Volkov might be able to take advantage of. Alexander Volkov, he is a huge guy for the division. He's a good striker. He has very, very good fight IQ. He's very tall. He's very long, and he has good durability. Guys, my gut is saying Volkov all day. All day. I worry about him being 36 years old. Cyril Gane, like, it depends if... That's tough, because I can see Cyril Gane outstriking Volkov, but I think Volkov has better options. It's shocking to me that Gane has a bigger reach than Alexander Volkov. Volkov's put together a really, really nice win streak, and his only loss being to the champion. The true champion, by the way. Anyways, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Romanov, why do I keep clicking on it? Tai Tuivasa, and then he had the shining performance against Sergey Pavlovich. It was incredible. He shut Sergey down completely. And I think he's more than capable of shutting down Cyril Gane as well. Another thing that I'm worried about, like I was kind of joking about, like Cyril Gane, he has money now. He is a huge star in France now. He's an actor now. Is he really going to be dedicated to the game as he once was on the come up? I don't think so. Look what happened to Conor McGregor. Like, I just recently watched something where I saw Cyril Gane in the background, and I was like, huh? That's Cyril Gane. It was something my wife was watching, but it doesn't really matter. Like, the dude has things outside of his life than fighting. Alexander Volkov is clearly still coming in here to want to be a champion. I think that's very important to note when you have two really, really great fighters in the division. I love the momentum that Alexander Volkov has been on. My gut's telling me to pick him all day, but Cyril Gane is still a fantastic striker. If Volkov wants to open up the ground game, I think that is an excellent option against Cyril Gane, but even then, I feel like he can contest in the striking. My pick's going to be Alexander Volkov, man. I think he's still improving. I think he's on track to, like, I would think he would give Tom Aspinall a run for his money when, like, if he continues this role. Like, if he steamrolls Cyril Gane, I'd be like, maybe he could beat Aspinall. Who knows? He beat Jones, that's for sure. He beat Jones and Stipe. Jones looks so slow, crazy. Alexander Volkov sitting at a big underdog, not a big underdog, but a shocking underdog in my opinion. No, it's not shocking. Cyril Gane could do what Cyril Gane does. I'm picking Alexander Volkov, man. I think he's going to get the win. And I like both guys. Maybe Gane just a little bit more. I might actually be cheering for Gane just a little bit. I know I just glazed the heck out of Volkov, but I've been very impressed. Very impressed. I hope Cyril gets a job done, but my pick is going to be Alexander Volkov. Now, guys, let's move on over to the co-main event. We have Shavkat Rakhmonov taking on Ian Machado Gary. Now, it's important to note, Ian Gary took this fight on short notice. He was supposed to fight Joaquin Buckley, and this is a arguably huge step up. Shavkat Rakhmonov, we all know him, we all love him. He's an insane finisher with good knockout power, crazy strong takedowns and submissions. He shines when he's on the ground. He's always hunting for ways to finish his opponents no matter what they are. On the feet, though, if you can drag him into a war, if you can avoid the finishing tactics in the first round, you can catch him being sloppy. Ian Gary, on the other hand, both guys undefeated. This is a great fight. He's a great kickboxer, a great boxer, kickboxer with great calf kicks, throws from range perfectly, although he oddly, and this is so weird about Ian Gary, he uses his range really well, but he does not have long arms. He also has really sneaky knees in his arsenal. He's confident, he's precise, he's active, he has the will in the octagon to overcome adversity to get his wins. His wrestling is decent, but it has been involving, and that really showed in his last fight. I'll talk about in just a second. Sometimes Ian Gary does struggle with pressure. If someone's on him, he can be hit a lot, and that's something I could see Shavkat Rakhmonov bring to the table. Now, I wanted to talk about this recent performance against Michael Page because while it was a close fight, and I do believe it could have gone either way, he was training at Shootbox with Charles Oliveira for this fight, and I don't know actually if he's still training at them or if that was a one-time thing for the training camp. If anybody knows that, I'd appreciate it if you could comment down below, but it showed. He brought takedowns and BJJ into his arsenal, and he did an okay job doing so. But the problem is, against Venom Page, he was losing the striking exchanges. But that's Venom Page. He's a puzzle to solve for a lot of people. I could see both guys getting the win here, but I don't like the fact that Ian took this on short notice. Shavkat Rakhmonov seems like he's the real deal. He's been a crazy finisher. Both guys have looked really good. The problem is Ian Gary has beaten better opponents as of recently. Kenan Song's a great win. Neil Magny, Jeff Neal, Michael Page. He looked great doing so. Shavkat's been more dominant, though. Besides, like, maybe Jeff Neal, right? I don't like that we've seen Ian Gary struggle with pressure a little bit. And I think that Rakhmonov is going to just constantly move forward and constantly pursue him and do what other opponents could not do to Ian Gary. But the problem is, Shavkat, if you can get around, like I said, if you can get around his really, really hard finishing from the first round, and he's trying to finish you throughout 3 rounds, don't get me wrong, but I'm talking about, like, once you get over that initial danger, he can get sloppy. Ian Gary has some really, really sneaky knees. I could see him chopping down Shavkat Rakhmonov and moving on the other side of the octagon, just constantly avoiding him. I could see a clear path to victory for Ian Gary in this fight. But my pick is going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's been more dominant, more impressive. Ian Gary took this on short notice. And I don't know if he's going to bring a grappling approach this time around, but I don't think it's a good idea if that's the case. My pick is going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov, and I also hope that Shavkat gets the job done. I mean, who really likes Ian Gary all that much? Shavkat Rakhmonov is going to be the pick. I hope he wins. Weirdly enough, we do not have odds for this fight yet. I would imagine that Shavkat will be a little bit of a favorite. All right, guys, let's move on to the main event. We have Alexandre Pantoja taking on UFC newcomer getting a title shot, Kai Asakura. We'll start with Kai Asakura. He is a very, very well-respected fighter, known all over the world. He's a well-rounded fighter, mainly a striker. He is with really nice power. He has good precision. He has a good variety of shots, and he does a good job with his distance management. He's 21-4, coming off of 2 wins. And he has been very well known overseas and in Ryzen. This dude seems like he's the real deal. The problem is there's a clear difference in the level of opponents that he's taken on from guys like Alexandre Pantoja. Pantoja, on the other hand, what can you say about him? He's an all-around fighter with a good gas tank, and he's especially good on the ground. Not a ton to break down. He has all of the heart in the world. Now, Pantoja, I want to talk about his recent performance. He's taken so much damage, so many miles on his body now he has accumulated. He's 34 years old in the flyweight division. Very important to note. I wonder if he's past his prime now. First of all, the Steve Eryk fight was a robbery, but it was a fairly close fight. I did think after watching this fight that his age is starting to show. He got tired way quicker in this fight, and the damage was really, really showing on him. He keeps his hands way too low. Like, I think it's getting worse. In saying that, though, this dude will fight through his exhaustion. He'll try to drag you down to the ground, and he will do anything that he can in his power to get the win. And he will do the same thing against Kai Asakura. I would imagine that this is going to be kind of a grappler versus striker matchup. While both guys are capable of fighting anywhere, Pantoja will obviously have the advantage on the ground, and I would imagine that Asakura would have the advantage on the feet. The problem is, you've seen Pantoja take on these great fighters. Brandon Royval, Alex Perez, Brandon Moreno, Brandon Royval again, Steve Eryk. These guys are infinitely better than maybe Kai Asakura in general and all of the opponents that he's taken on, okay? There's a clear difference in the level of competition, and for that reason, I can't pick Kai Asakura to win. I can't. He's looked great. He's a very well-respected fighter. His technique seems to be the real deal. I need to see him against UFC talent before I pick him to beat the champion of the flyweight division. My pick is going to be Alexandre Pantoja. And honestly, I hope he gets the job done. I think he's a very underappreciated fighter. People call him boring, and I've never understood that. Like, yeah, he wants to get fights to the ground, but the dude, watching his heart and his will to win and the technique that he brings in his grappling, I think it's really nice to watch personally. So I like Alexandre Pantoja. I hope he gets the win. Odds Jam over here has Alexandre Pantoja sitting at a minus 244 favorite. That makes sense. I even think it could be a little bit higher, to be honest with you, but it's a great fight. Could you imagine if Kai Asakura walks into the UFC, Matt Serra style, getting the job done? That would be crazy hype. Now, guys, before we head out here, I do have a question for you. John Jones, Tom Aspinall. Who do you think gets the job done if they get that matchup up? I think it's going to be Tom Aspinall. I think he's going to win by a landslide. Hear what I have to say right here. Comment down below. Tell me why I'm crazy or why you agree with me. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Take care, everybody.